Hey there, everyone. This is Dave Andrews, back to you from beautiful Kauai, Hawaii. As you can see, in this kind of amazing backdrop, I'm in this kind of covered little space right on the beach. It's kind of amazing to me that I get to be here talking to you from paradise, really. Even on a rainy day, it's paradise. And as you all know me, I'm author of the 30-Day Sobriety Solution, How to Quit or Cut Back Drinking in the Privacy of Your Own Home, with best-selling author Jack Canfield. So pretty exciting, again, to come back to you for this third video of the series. And so last two videos, I've shared with you some really powerful concepts that I've learned teaching Insider Circle, things that aren't in the book, things that really are a little bit different or new, and maybe help move the dial for you, maybe really gave you some insight and some understanding that wasn't there before. And I'm going to review that a little bit. And I'm also going to share with you one of my favorite topics to share, and it's called dream crushers. And so these dream crushers are these things that we do that pretty much, as you can guess, crush our dreams and ruin everything. And so it's one of my favorite topics that I teach. It's something that's so important and so useful, and something that can give you immediate value. And that's really part of what these videos are about, is really offering you some of these great things that I've learned. And I just love to be able to share that with you, and especially share with you from this kind of amazing place. It's such a privilege to be able to do something from middle of the ocean. And so today we'll talk about dream crushers, and we'll review a little bit what we already talked about, the main concepts being around fight and light, if you remember from the last video. And fight really stands for the ways that we resist and hold ourselves back, and how we leave room for drinking to keep showing up. And light is when we kind of bring light to our fights, to our resistance. And when we can do that, we can really free ourselves. And so what that means, if you remember, is that we want to try to choose light over fight, and starting with love and fear. And so love and fear, what Jack always talks about and teaches, is we make a decision on anything we do based on fear or love. And we either decide based on fear, we decide based on love. Someone last night, interestingly enough, shared with me something which is right on this topic, and I thought it was funny because I was just teaching about this. And he shared that when we operate from a place of fear, then everything we're doing is kind of like these lessons, like we have to learn these lessons. But when we operate from love, it's about experiencing things differently. And I thought that was a really kind of beautiful, subtle, powerful message around how we can see things differently. Because sometimes lessons, I don't mind the word lesson, but it does kind of inherently mean right or wrong. And so it means that we have to learn the right way to do things. And that's this mentality that can get messy the more right and wrong we hold on to. And certainly something I did a lot in my life, and so I understand that. So really we want to look at our choices being based more in fear or in love. And so that's kind of the first concept. The next concept is on, if we go down the acronym to remind yourself, is fight and light, is I. We want to really set this intention for what we want to be. Intention in some ways is, I prefer over goals, because intention has a beingness to it, this kind of real opportunity for us to really live and enjoy the experience of becoming anything and accomplishing anything, versus getting caught up sometimes in this energy of like, I have to achieve and finish. And we choose that over illusion, which is really illusion's denial and telling stories that aren't completely true. We've all been around a friend or a family member that shares something with you, and it's almost like you want to laugh because they just say something about themselves that's so disconnected from the truth. You're like, do you really see yourself like that? And so this illusion, and we have an opportunity, not always in the moment, but in hindsight, to really clear that illusion and get clear about what's going on. And then moving down there is greed or gratitude. So we get the choice gratitude and appreciate everything that we have, and this kind of gratitude reboot, versus greed and really always trying to get more of things, to think that maybe if we get more, we'll feel worthy of love and worthy of connection, and we'll feel okay. And moving down, then we look at H. H on hiding out, on the side that we act out. We hide out with our drinking. We hide out with our mask we wear and kind of who we try to be so we can be liked and seen. And instead of this other side, which is really hope, and having hope for the fact that, wow, I can get sober. I can be happy. Dave seems happy. Other people that have done his work and, like Insider Circle, seem happy, and maybe there's possibility there. And that's really this hope. When we have hope, we will take action. If we have no hope, we're usually going to stay stuck. Now, hope doesn't guarantee action. Hope can be one of those false things that we always have hope, but we never act on it. But hope is essential in my mind to moving past our stuckness. And then T, the last part, which is temptation. Temptation to drink, temptation to gamble, temptation to have sex, temptation to do these things that are acting out in some essence that really take us away from who we are, or transparency, vulnerability. And again, we'll revisit, say again with that quote, Brene Brown, we are the most obese, in-debt, medicated society in the history of our society. And that's powerful and important when you say it, when you hear it like that, because it means we're not alone. And when we actually share our pain and our truth with other people are usually, in fact, happy and grateful to hear that and like, wow, okay, well, if you're struggling, then I can tell you I'm struggling. And this transparency and vulnerability, we all want to be truthful and honest about who we are. We all want to figure out what we're born to do and share that with others. And when we don't, and I shared this in the first video, when we don't share our gift, when we don't connect with who we really are, our purpose, and we don't share that, others suffer. Because the reality is, and this is my belief at least, and this is what a lot of great teachers teach, is that we all have something to give. And there are certain people that we can give to that can receive it from us and can't receive it from maybe anyone else. And so when we don't offer and share our greatest truth, what we're born to do, what we really do is we're really hurting others around us, and especially those really close to us that we can maybe model, like our kids and family members, that we can model what it's like to really push past resistance and pain and temptation and greed and hiding out and find our true self and share that with the world. It really can be so amazing. And it's one of my favorite things I get to do in the work I do, especially with Insider Circle, getting to spend 12 weeks with people. And, and when I do Insider Circle, it's my whole life for 12 weeks, essentially. And I get to train and coach and connect, and I get to connect with the volunteers, because every group has these group of volunteers that are amazing. And so wanted to review Fight and Light with you. And then this idea, of course, we're not alone. I shared that. I talked about that a lot in the last video as well. And also around this goal setting and how when we try to achieve goals, we often take a completely different approach, right? And we achieve, when we're trying to achieve our sobriety, and that's our goal, we tend to approach it completely differently from how we approach every other goal in life. And what we have an opportunity to do is look at our strengths and look at who we are, and then look at the opposite of those strengths. Like, our strengths are our weaknesses also, and try to figure out, like, what is it that when we get sober, we get stuck? Because a lot of us have pushed past, not all, probably all of us have achieved goals that we thought were hard, maybe impossible, but yet we were able to accomplish it. And that is often because we have to get up 100 times when falling down 99. But with our sobriety, we will often fall down 2 or 3 times and we're going to say, I'm done. Never going to happen. And again, I'm holding my favorite crystal here. I love this. And the rain's coming down, just stunning, a little bit of sunshine. It's like, wow. All right. So today, Dream Crushers. And Dream Crushers are these amazing ways this can have instant impact in your life if you look at things, because these are things that we all do, and you'll see them in other people, you'll see them in yourself, you'll see them reflected back to you, you'll see someone do it, and you'll be like, oh, I do that same thing. And so these dream crushers are ways that we interact and communicate and work in relationship that really hurt ourselves. And so let's kind of start going through them. And let's kind of hop around on some of them. So one of the ones that I learned about early on when I was working to get sober was I went to a therapist, and I didn't get a lot of value from that experience, but there was one thing she said. She said, alcoholics are the best rationalizers in the world, and that really resonated. And so the rationalizer is one of these dream crushers. We will rationalize how and when to drink. I need to drink. I have to drink because of this stress, or I want to drink, or if I don't drink, my friends won't like me, or my peers won't like me, or I won't be accepted at work. And really, it's a bunch of crap, right? I mean, your truth has to be your truth. So I would encourage each of you to look at that. And how do you rationalize on your way home to drink? I used to be a master at that. Like, oh, my sports team is doing great. They're doing crappy. I'm doing great. I'm doing crappy. It's a holiday in South America, or I think it's a holiday in Spain or something, and all these kind of crazy ways we rationalize drinking. And so that's one way we hurt ourselves. And it's not just with drinking. It's with a lot of things, but it keeps us stuck. And that's a big one with drinking. The resenter, someone that always resents and kind of has energy towards others. I shared with you in a previous video, resentment is unmet expectations. So in essence, if we're resentful for other people, then what's really going on is we have an expectation of them that's not being met. And guess what? That's not something you can control, at least very easily, or at least with much sanity. So one of the things that got taught to me, which was really powerful, is looking at these expectations I hold on to in my relationships with the people closest to me, but with anyone, and then asking myself, do I really need to have that expectation? Why can't I just let go of it? Because it's not serving me, and all I'm doing is getting angry. And so resentment, the resenter, are you going through life always resenting others, angry at others? You can't control other people. I've said this in both videos, I think. Controlling the uncontrollable is one of the greatest sources of pain and suffering in all of society. And so if you're resentful for other people's actions, and yet you have no control over it, then you're just setting yourself up for a lot of pain. And there were a lot of lessons I was able to learn. A lot of things I changed immediately when I found that out, which really moved my needle in a big way. And so I would really look at these unmet expectations you have set up for yourself and how to release them. And let's go on. So another one would be, we'll talk about the big ones here in a little bit, which are victim and rescuer. And those are powerful, but I want to come to those at the end. So another one would be the drama queen. So the drama queen can over exaggerate everything, can get really like, oh yeah, and just like, just, and be over emotional and overreactive. And it's like, and we all know people like that, right? And really what a drama queen is all about is most likely, I mean, who knows what it is exactly, but it's not usually for healthy reasons, often for maybe getting attention or getting people to see you. And this might tap into the victim role that we'll talk about here in a little bit that can play out and be very destructive in our life. And so drama queen might be one of those that you can look at and see. There's a couple I'd probably put all in the same bucket, which is kind of finger pointer, blamer, or judger. And so the judger, the finger pointer, the blamer, these are all this energy of towards others, about their actions, about who they are, about what they represent. The more work I do in this life, the more time I spend helping others, the more I realize that there is no right and wrong. The truth is so subjective and so based off of our own personal reality, which is not a shared reality, that this judgment always takes us off track. Because who are we to share and say something about someone else and who they are? The one example I say, when they get caught in the judgment, and I get caught in judgment too. Deepak Chopra, before I go to that example, Deepak Chopra says that if we release all judgment, then our minds are silent. And if you look at it, everything is a judgment. And we'll talk about some other judgments we make, like comparisons and whatnot. But the example I want to give is that, let's look at somebody that is what we would call racist, maybe, especially in today's society, someone that has issues with, let's say, black, and think about it from a perspective of someone in the South decades ago that grew up in a family where their whole family had slaves. They believed in this hierarchy of humans, that, we all know today is really crazy, but they believed in that. They taught that. And their whole life was about being taught and reinforcing this system of slavery being okay and whites being greater than blacks. As crazy as that he says, even to say it, like I say that, even like I go, ooh. Anyway, however, what I want to share with you is that how could we not have compassion for the person that's never been taught a single other thing other than that one lesson? How would they have any clue that that would be something even wrong, quote unquote wrong? And so that's what really, even though it's a big example, that happens in life all the time. What we value and how we value it is not a shared experience. In our culture, it can feel that way. And we can surround ourselves with people that share those values. And our families often share those values, but it's not universal. And we certainly know that within the family, it's not universal. So this real judgment energy or finger pointing or blaming is really taking everything away from ourselves to work on who we are. Because when we judge, blame, and finger point, what we really are doing is saying, I'm right, you are wrong. And if I'm right and you're wrong, then I'm going to stay angry, frustrated, whatever mood I'm in, until you change. And think about that. Really what you're doing is then you're giving all the power to everyone else, right? If you're judging and blaming and finger pointing and all that, you're basically saying you change or I'm going to stay mad. And again, how disempowering and how much does that keep drinking showing up? Because that's pain, that's suffering, and that is not necessary. So the other one I alluded to just a minute ago is this competitive comparer, which I love. And so the competitive comparer is one that I used to do all the time, right? Like we would always I think in the slide I show like the best feedback ever. It's like giving feedback and then make it a competition. Everything's just competition. The challenge is that in the competition lives this feeling and righteousness around right or win and lose. And so again, it's kind of like right and wrong, but win and lose. And so what we'll use around this is that we will make ourselves the winner, but we often won't set it up that everyone can win. Most of the time in life, everyone can win. We're just so set in this framework of understanding of way of looking at things that it's win-lose. And in a race, you're right, there's a winner and a loser, but that's not even always clear. If you really think about it, how many times have you thought there was a winner and then all of a sudden it's announced they cheated? So again, but if you had lived your life around that energy and said, I won, you lost, and all that other stuff, and then you found out they cheated, then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm sorry, well, I didn't know that. And that's kind of how we get lost in this whole shuffle. And so that's a big one for us. This is what I need to add, and I haven't added it yet, is like the hearsayer, as I'm going to call it, or something like that. But it's also the assuminator. We'll call it the assuminator, because I do have a slide for that, and I'll put hearsay under it. The assuminator, what the assuminator does is they make a lot of assumptions. This one is huge. I mean, it is huge in your relationship, your marriage, your friendships, your work. We assume how our manager feels. We assume how our friends feel. We assume how the person walking down the street feels. We assume their look towards us wasn't behind us, was it at us, and all of a sudden we must have something on our face or look funny. And we go through life, and especially our most important relationships, assuming we know how someone feels because we know them. And I'm telling you right now, what you think and what is not even close to true. And I've had to test that. I have people all the time that say, well, I really, oh, that's how they, and then they're like, and they ask, and they say, hey, hey, honey, I'm really picking up something. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just had a really bad day at work. It has nothing to do with you. And truly, until we check in, we don't know that, but we assume it, and then we make decisions based off that assumption. So we use this assumption. We act like it's real. We might even judge the person. Like how many times, number of times I've gotten into arguments in my head, assuming someone's going to say something to me. I'm like, oh, my God, I just got in a complete argument in my head with somebody that didn't even say anything, but I assumed they were going to say it, and then I went through the whole process of kind of debating it in my head. How destructive is that in our life? I certainly don't feel good after I do that, and it certainly doesn't attract any positive energy towards that person next time I see him. And in fact, if we make it really real, our brain doesn't know the difference, so we actually maybe think that actually happened, and then we bring that into the relationship. But how we also do this is we use hearsay. This will just really become present to me in the last few months in this big way because it's big in divorce. Hearsay is this really ugly thing. And so, if I am holding compassionate space for a dear friend for something they're struggling with, that's a beautiful thing. However, the moment I take what they're struggling with and I take it on as my problem or my pain, and then I maybe run with it, maybe I share it with another friend or family member, maybe I even decide that I need to go tell that person off, and I'm going to go tell them what's right, and then I do that. And then, like 3 months later, I have an experience with the same friend. And all of a sudden, I see the same behavior pattern in them that would trigger a response that brought light to the experience prior. Meaning, all of a sudden, I realized, like, wait a minute. If you just did that, maybe you were wrong. Or maybe there's another side of the story around the person that I was judging based off of what you told me. And how many times have you had a conversation with somebody and said, wow, they're horrible. I can't believe they did that. And then you talk to the other person and you're like, oh, well, that's a different story. I can't tell you how many times I've said, there's no way that story is going to change when I talk to them. And then it changes completely. That's what we do. And so you think about when you use hearsay and run with it, you really can destroy friendships because all of a sudden, holding that compassionate space is not just that. It's taking on this whole other level. And then you're going to be angry at them because you're going to feel like they duped you into getting angry at them. And what all you need to really do in the first place is just be there and not take over their problems. I truly try to honor how I see somebody in the way that I see them in first person. I try not to use hearsay. If hearsay is so bad and ugly with somebody that I'm struggling with, then I just try to talk to them about it and say, look, I've heard a lot of stuff. I really can't release it. Can we just talk about it so I can see like where I'm at with this? Because, if that's true, I might not want to ever see you again. So, and that might be true. Maybe it's completely honest, but do yourself a favor. If you don't like being judged by hearsay, if you've ever had anyone come to you and go off on you about something you said or did that wasn't even true, and that was hearsay, then don't do it to another person and we all have had that happen probably. So the inconsistent critic is the person that sometimes will judge one person one way and another way. So sometimes in my Insider Circle program, for example, someone will have an opinion or a judgment on somebody in the group, but then I'll do the same thing and they'll give me a free pass. And that's would be an inconsistent critic, right? Because either you feel that way or you don't. And really basing it on the person and who they are or status or whatnot is not a healthy approach. And so what you want to do is really look at, is this something I bother with or not? But really also with yourself, because we talked about this in the last video, but so often we will treat our one friend or our dear friend with kindness and support and total forgiveness and not judge them for what they did, but then we'll do the same thing and we will completely tear ourselves up and judge ourselves and beat ourselves up and all of that other stuff. And so this inconsistent critic can really just be used to keep ourselves at a less than place. The don't know, we have chickens right now, once we see the chickens in the video here. The don't know, don't care. That's a really interesting one, right? So sometimes when in coaching, a lot of times I'll be like, I don't know, I don't care. And it often is a defense mechanism. Often we do know, and we just have to really have it help be seen and brought to light. And sometimes we're just so used to saying those words, I don't know, I don't care, that we forget to even actually check in if it's true. And so this is another way that we really hold ourselves back from seeing the truth and for being honest with ourselves, is we just immediately say, I don't know and I don't care. And another one that goes right into that is the I already know that. So that's another great one I get an Insider Circle. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I think I have some amazing content. I think I've done some great job aggregating it, but it's not necessarily all that much new. Mostly I'm great at taking a lot of different content from a lot of places and integrating it. And then I do have some powerful new ideas and concepts I can bring together. But the most part is if you expose yourself to a lot of self-help training type program, you will see a lot of what you see in my program. The difference is in the Insider Circle, it's a framework for practicing and applying it. We will so often say, I already know that. But then when we ask the question, did I do it? Oh, well, no. Or I did it for a couple of days. One of the things I've been really excited about that I've been trying to learn, and not trying, I've been learning, and is the Wim Hof breathing method. So Wim Hof, WIMHOFF breathing method, and really powerful. Someone from last Insider Circle flew out to Kauai, another island, and we went for a hike, and then he actually introduced it to me at the top of the mountain, and it was unbelievable. And then, ironically, of course, as all this stuff happens, I had someone locally here that just out of the blue told me about it. And these are the things that just happen when we're getting things. I laugh sometimes because I think, just give me the answer so I can solve this. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, that's always been there. I've gotten it from about 8 different people around me. This Wim Hof breathing method is really amazing. And so what it does, though, is it can release stress, it can release fear, it can release all of these things, and it can help you calm yourself, meditate. However, I already knew that. I've heard of it. I never practiced it. And so he said to me, he goes, I said, oh, I've heard of that, or I've done that. He goes, well, how often you do it? I'm like, well, I've done it like a couple times. and so again, it's this opportunity to apply it, right? And so in Insider Circle, for example, that's where the accountability shows up and all these great tools we use to keep people trying to do these things, because knowing it is meaningless if you can't apply it and use it. We make things so much harder than we have to. I know I make things so much harder than I have to. And one of the ways I do that is I complicate it. If I were just to focus on some of the key solutions that I really love, that I know work for me, and that I've learned, and make sure I practice them regularly, I know that would make life a lot easier for me. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So what I try to do is do what I teach, which is be kind to myself, compassionate, give myself space and time to get there, and knowing that I will get there eventually. And then one more I'll share with you is called what I call the analyzer. The analyzer is really pretty much a shared experience I find in all of Insider Circle. We live up in our head, and we get so much up in our head that we never get to feel and experience our emotions. And in that up in our head, all we're really doing is we're kind of really judging and blaming and processing and doing all of the intellectual kind of stuff. And Insider Circle attracts these amazing, intelligent people. These people are so brilliant and so well educated, yet we're here to really experience our emotions on a physical level. And if we stay in our head, we don't get the opportunity to move into our body. So 2 big ones that overlap and connect to all of these are the victim and the rescuer. And really important to understand these 2. So I'll start with the easier one, which is victim and victim consciousness. A lot of you probably have heard of that, but if you haven't, victim consciousness is this basic belief that you are stuck. It's kind of also can be called learned helplessness. That's been popularized more in psychology, but victim consciousness is that I'm broken and there's no hope for me. Now, I don't want to confuse that with grieving. We all have to grieve at times. We all have to grieve loss and whatever it might be. But if we stay in that grief and we allow ourselves to stay stuck there, and then we actually act and believe like we can never change it, that we're always going to be a loser drunk, that we're always going to be this bad person at math, or always going to be the person that can't keep a cash, can't keep an Excel spreadsheet up to date with our budget or something, or never going to be able to figure out technology or our phones, whatever it is. That's a victim consciousness, because the reality is, these little examples I gave, we're all capable of learning. If we are in that 97%, I think 97% of our population is in that realm where even a lot of great teachers say anyone can learn anything. It's that 3% that's the deviation that can be highly genius or struggle with major learning disorders. And so, assuming we're all in that area, then we all have the capacity of really learning and transcending beyond some of these challenges. But a victim consciousness is tempting and tricks us, because in that victim consciousness, sometimes we feel like we get our needs met. So let me give you one example for this. Support groups are amazing. AA, cancer support groups, all those. They can be unbelievable, because what they do is they do what we've already talked about. They can help you feel not alone, and they can help you believe that it's possible to get to the other side. However, what if I go into a victim support group And all of a sudden, I start getting my needs met. I start feeling like people are listening for the first time in my life. I start making these bonds and these connections with people that all of a sudden are different than my other ones. And maybe I'm even sharing some real honest, vulnerable truths that I never shared with anyone else. And I receive some benefit, and I receive a real positive connection there. What is possible is if I stay in that group, and I'm only getting that experience in that group, that I will then stay, for example, if I have cancer, I might want to stay sick. I might want to stay hurting because that's my first time I've ever experienced this beautiful kind of connection and love, so to say. And this actually can fall into rescuing too, but we'll talk more about it from victim consciousness. So what that means is, like, so for example, with my marriage, when I got sober, one of the powerful things I did to get sober, and this is a great example of rescue and victim, is my ex-wife now started going to Al-Anon. And in Al-Anon, they say you have to stop rescuing. So rescuing is trying to save somebody when they don't ask for your help. And so really what it is, it's about you doing it because you feel you need to, and it keeps both people stuck. So my ex-wife, or wife at the time, was rescuing me with my drinking. So often, the married couple, and I think I shared this in the first date a little bit, but the one that, if you're in a relationship where one drinks and one doesn't, the one that doesn't drink also picked that relationship for a reason. And usually because they want to save you from your drinking, but they don't really want to save you because that's how they feel worthy of your love. And so if that's the case, and that's how they feel worthy of your love, then that's why they do it. But guess what? Then if you get sober, then all of a sudden they might not feel worthy of your love. Now, when she went to Al-Anon and they said you have to stop rescuing, everything changed because even though she wanted me to quit drinking, she was giving me a lot of attention, not good attention, but still significance in some ways for my drinking. And that kind of kept me confused. And again, it was still my journey to move out from alcohol, move away from it. But when she all of a sudden stopped giving me attention at all when I was drinking and really just kind of disconnected, it was like, oh, this is different. And I really felt alone then. And it was very different having negative attention and having no attention. And that changed everything for me. And so this is how rescuing and victim can show up. One example in Insider Circle, which was amazing, is a woman came in and hadn't drank, never had a problem with drinking for her first almost 40 years of life. 17 years into her marriage, her husband got sober. And within 6 months, she was alcoholic. And she was alcoholic until she came into the program about 15 years later, except for 1 year. And guess what? That 1 year she wasn't, he was really sick, and he needed her help. And so she got to help him. And that's not rescuing. Rescuing, if you're helping and they want your help and you're providing that, then that can be really beautiful. So, but what was interesting and what was clear and what helped her get sober, and the last I heard from her, she is still sober, which is amazing, is because it was so powerful when she saw this and then played it out with relationships, is that when her husband got sober, she didn't feel worthy of love. And so, because she couldn't rescue him anymore, even though she never really was rescuing him, that process of trying to save him made her feel significant, like made her feel okay, like, well, if he's broken, then he'll still love me and how broken I am. But when that went away, all of a sudden there's a big hole inside of her, and that hole is filled with alcohol. That's how powerful this other part of rescuing can be. Rescuing takes on all these crazy forms, and it's really, this is one of the more complicated things I teach, actually, I've come to learn. Thought it was really simple at first. There are closet rescuers, there are not closet rescuers. The typical rescuer is somebody that gives everything up in their, like, the typical rescuer, I'd say, would be the stay-at-home mom that does everything for everyone in the house and never, and is resentful for it. And also never has asked or even said, hey, can I have a break? Or I need to do this? Or can you help me do this? Instead, they just learn, I did share this before in our video, but it's important to recall here with the rescuing piece. It's a form of, like, I have to be this person for my kids, for my husband, wife, whatever the case might be. And I have seen men do this too. Just in the last group, we had a man that was rescuing inside of the marriage for housework and all this other stuff and cooking and things like that. And he resented it, but he never shared the resentment. And again, that's just rescuing. I'm going to do this. No one's asking me to do it. I haven't even checked in necessarily, and yet I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to be resentful for doing it. And that's often what we get taught by our parents. Our mom or dad might have role modeled these in different ways, and so we carry this with us. But rescuing really is, again, this feeling of not feeling good enough or worthy enough, and going out there and doing things to try to get to feel worthy and good enough. And so all of these different dream crushers, including rescuer and victim, you have an opportunity just looking at and really seeing what is playing out in your family, your life, your relationships. Some of these are quick wins. I mean, literally some of these you can change very quickly when you start making changes and start recognizing this. That's what I love about personal growth is sometimes, especially if you haven't been exposed to a lot of this stuff or for a while you haven't, sometimes one of the greatest one of the most amazing things is that just this one time of learning something and bringing that to your awareness once can set the stage for freeing it for forever sometimes, because a lot of us never even realize we have an opportunity to look at things differently. We have the ability to see the world in a different way. One of the things I always get with people in Insider Circle that eventually at some point is they're like, wow, like I didn't realize like I could make a choice around this experience, that I could actually look at this way, and all of a sudden I don't have to be angry or upset anymore. And also realize how much that they create this kind of hamster wheel of around their life, around the same pain, replaying, and once they see it, they're like, wow, or they see it in someone else in Insider Circle. And so these dream crushers can be really big. And so now what I want to go to is really, I want to share with you how it doesn't have to be this way, how you can have a different life, how you can change everything. And that is truly in Insider Circle and this next teammate, which is coming up. And I have a really special offer next video I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to share with you some of the things that's changed. That's really kind of this now with 7 teams behind us. These last 2 teams have been the most amazing, fulfilling, meaningful experiences of my life. And also I've seen some of the greatest transformations I've ever seen. You know, for example, one woman in IC6 has been sober since early October, was drinking up to 3 bottles of wine every single night, literally. And through the process of kind of embracing the group and the team and embracing and sharing things, you know, they never shared before, and trusting the anonymity at first to really, before they felt safe, before they even opened up, and then becoming a volunteer in this last group, which as a volunteer you can do for free. And that's one thing that I love, is that I let everyone that's, once they've done the group once, you can sign up for a volunteer. And then as a volunteer, you get to kind of help others in their journey and also work on your journey. And as a volunteer, it doesn't mean you're sober. It doesn't mean you've already gotten there. You know, a lot of volunteers are still struggling some. And that's okay, because guess what? This is the whole change we've been talking about. And I shared in video 1 about this 3 stages of the 3-phased approach to quitting drinking. We have to let go of this idea that we're going to stop one day and never drink again. We get to. We don't have to. We get to let go of that. We get to realize that lasting change takes some time. And if I really want it to stick, I need to be kind and compassionate and realize that I'm going to struggle at times. I'm going to fall down. It does not mean I have to exclude myself from things like Insider Circle. You know, if there's really major acting out or things like that, or it's not working out, or if there's drunken kind of forum posting and other stuff like that, then that's different, right? Then we step in and we make sure that, you know, there are certain boundaries. But we haven't experienced that, maybe even at all, especially as volunteers. Because we have these amazing people that just volunteer after they've done the program, and then they give back in this beautiful way, and it's this full circle experience. So this Insider Circle, you know, all these different things I've talked about, there's nothing more powerful in making a change. And believe me, I know where all of you are sitting, meaning I was like, I will never do a program where I interact with other people about my drinking. No way. I can't do that. Not possible. Now look where I'm at, right? Sharing this and all that, right? So, but I was adamant about it. Like, I literally probably extended my drinking 5 years longer than I need to, because AA was something I would not do. But AA offered me true anonymity. With Insider Circle, though, when you come in, it's such an interesting experience, because it is a big investment, right? But it's very expensive to run it. And so with my staff, and we have this amazing staff, and now the last few groups we've had this stress trauma consultant who's who's a mentor to me and just does the most brilliant work I've ever seen. And then we have just a whole other staff and volunteer list that's just amazing. But the reality is, it's work, it's time, but it actually works. And the difference is that, so some of the things that always come up for people are like the investment in money. Absolutely, right? Well, the woman I just shared with you about, she probably saved $5,000 since October in alcohol expenses. Well, just alcohol, not the health benefits, not the relationships that she saved and changed, not the things that she does their time differently and how she doesn't maybe shop as much or do other things as much. You know, so these are all examples of things that save tons of money, but just the money in alcohol. Every group we kind of calculate, not every group, last group we didn't do this, but we often will calculate what we think the estimate is after. I'll look at people's kind of where they were drinking coming in, and then I'll assume a very conservative number of how much they didn't drink, and I'll often know that sometimes with my coaching calls with people, and it will be in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $50,000 that whole group saved on just alcohol expenses alone, not health related, not other things that come from drinking, things like that. So the money is a big deal, but if you think about it from the perspective of what you're working on taking away, and then you think about it as that you get to continue your journey as a volunteer at no cost, that can be dramatic that can lead to dramatic savings and changing a perspective. The other thing that often comes up, which is interesting, is time. I don't have time. I'm too busy. If you knew the number of people that came in that were ridiculously busy, said they didn't have the time, that had breakthrough results, I mean, it's a common experience. And the reason why is, guess what happens when you also change your drinking? You get all of this time back. You get time back from not just your drinking, but from your hangovers. You're more clear-headed. You're more functional. And I'm not talking about people that are sober the whole program. I'm talking about people that are sober like maybe half of it. Like, so for a 12-week program, they're sober 6 weeks. Even that alone will save you and recoup more than enough time that you would be spending in the program. And yeah, it is time, but that's what real change is. This whole thing on TV and our cultural obsession with like changing on a flip of a switch and taking a pill and just all of a sudden, woohoo, I'm happy and I'm perfect and I got six-pack abs and yahoo, and I just took a couple pills. Well, that's not real, right? And so believe me, and I have tested about every freaking one you possibly could, even those stupid ones where you put $1 in the envelope and send it to 10 people, and then, oh, look at that. I got like probably 20 or 30 ones in the mail eventually. It's kind of really funny. Anyway, so next video, we'll share more about that, and I'll share the special offer making that I get to make because I get to do this, and here I am in this beautiful place, and so it's such a blessing. And so this group with IC8 coming up, I'm so excited about it. And pay attention, keep your eye on your email because it'll come out 2 days after this one or within a couple days, and then you'll get an opportunity. We actually, because we're doing this differently, we expect it to sell out. However, we'll see, and no promises. But no matter what, if this has resonated with you, if this content's resonated with you, I shared today in the last 2 videos, then you're not going to want to miss out on this possibility, this opportunity that will be presented. And I just want to thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart. You watching this, me getting to do this work, it is a dream come true, and I'm just honored and blessed, and I'm so thrilled to be here again from Kauai, sharing these kind of lessons I've learned to you, and hoping that you can receive them and maybe start moving the dial in your life and making some changes. And so love to all of you, and I look forward to our next video and talking then.